Greetings, RetroCultists. Welcome to another RetroCult adventure. This time, the RetroCult crew hit the road for Kannapolis, North Carolina and the Kannapolis Microcon. Kannapolis is a beautiful small town just north of Charlotte, North Carolina. Before the show started, we spent some time walking around near the Atrium Health Ballpark, home of the Kannapolis Cannonballers. Even though the weather was overcast and cool, the tunnel fountain was a lot of fun. It'd be a welcome relief on a hot summer day. There's plenty of food and shopping on West Avenue and on nearby Main Street. The Bank Food Hall looked interesting and is on our list to visit on another trip to Kannapolis. If you're ever in the area, check out Eat Cake's Bakery. Their brownies are world class. Then head down West Avenue to the local Patriot Roasting Company for a fantastic cup of coffee and great local atmosphere. If you do stop by the bank, be sure to check out the 1934 Ford with the Bonnie and Clyde mannequins inside. Interesting addition. While continuing our walk around, we ran across a few themed muscle cars there for the show. I'm going to date myself a bit by saying I have no idea who the anime characters are. I'll have to ask my son. So Logan, if you're watching, leave a comment with their names on the video. I loved the Soundwave Dodge Charger. Soundwave is without a doubt the best Transformer. Leave a comment if you disagree. Even though he was a Decepticon, he had a sense of honor and the smoothest voice since Barry White. Again, I'm not sure who Shauna is, but she's dropping some wisdom on that bumper. Next, we visited Cardiac's Sports and Memorabilia. Really nice card shop right on West Avenue. If you're into sports cards or non-sports cards, definitely check them out if you're in the area. Of course, I found the obligatory Funko Pops section. Funko Pops are one of those things I don't actively collect, but somehow I own 1,000 of them. And this is what gets me. They have a Mirror Universe Captain Kirk. See, this is how I ended up owning 1,000 Funko Pops. The Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine was also pretty cool. This time, though, I did avoid them, and I didn't actually buy either one of them. Chuck had already sniffed out the best of the non-sports cards. Some very nice Batman 66 cards. Just a really good selection of non-sports cards. I did end up taking a look at some Ultraverse cards that they had. We'll be looking at those later in the video in the haul section. So the con started at 11 a.m. It was at the Old Armor Beer Company. It was a really fun, cozy venue for a comic book and pop culture show. The convention was set up and run by Beardy Weirdy's Comics and Toys. Beardy Weirdy's booth was just past the costume contest stage as we entered the con. Chris, the owner of Beardy Weirdy's, is a super nice guy and always has a fantastic selection of comics and toys. If you're ever in the Concord, North Carolina area, visit his booth at the depot at Gibson Mill. And he also has booths in the Marketplace on Main Antique Mall right there in Kannapolis. This con might have been small and cozy, but the finds were huge and the deals were very, very hot. I'm going to let you enjoy some footage now of just me pawing through boxes of comics. This is a comic book convention the way God intended. A bunch of sweaty nerds, long boxes of comics, and a good time. Did I mention there were a lot of dollar boxes at this con? And I found so much good stuff for $1. I do regret not buying this Ghost Rider. I couldn't remember if I already had it, but generally my rule of thumb is if it glows in the dark, you gotta buy it. This copy of Adventure Comics went into my stack, and I was just determined to get it, but I double thought it because it had a small tear on the front cover. So in a few moments, I ended up putting it back, but it did end up going to a good home. Todd Venture did end up buying it as part of his takeaway from the con. I'll put a link to the video here. Dollar boxes are always the story of the ones that got away. Goblin's Horde didn't just have dollar comics, they had a really nice back wall. There are quite a few up there I need and will eventually get. I'm still wrestling on whether I should collect Godzilla King of Monsters from the 70s, but right now that's a collection for another day. The biggest thrill of the show for the entire RetroCult crew was getting to meet Todd Venture and his lovely wife Connie. Todd's YouTube channel was awesome and was an inspiration for Chuck and me to start the RetroCult. Please go check out his YouTube channel, Todd Venture. Right. Let's look at some of the treasures we found at the Kannapolis MicroCon. Alright, to start with, these actually weren't from the con, but from the Cardiac's card store. They're on the main street in Kannapolis. A couple of Prime Ultraverse cards. Prime was an interesting character, kind of a combo takeoff on the concept of Shazam, because the character was a child who could turn into this huge muscular Superman, created by the late great Norm Brayfogle back during the Malibu Comics era in the early 90s, when everybody and their brother was starting a comic book company. Malibu, I think, ended up getting purchased by Marvel. A lot of and unfortunately, I think the Ultraverse, which I believe was creator-owned, just ended up going away. And unfortunately, people like Norm Brayfogle have passed away in the intervening years, so I don't know what the rights issues would even look like there. But I always did enjoy the character Prime, and he remains one of my favorite Batman artists of all time. And the art in Prime was real. I mean, as you can see from this card, which is Brayfogle art. I think these two are Brayfogle. I don't know if Brayfogle did the art on this one or not. It doesn't. I don't think it says who the artist is. But as you can tell, he went muscular to the extreme, which it was the 90s. So extreme with an X, no E. Anyway, that I was happy to find these. For $5, not a bad deal. The next thing that we have is the Star Trek Enterprise Logs Golden Press trade paperback. Let's open this up, take a look at it. It's got a notch out of the cover, but looks like it may have been even gnawed on, probably in an attic. It's not in great condition, but I'm excited to have it. These old Golden Book. Oh yeah, this reprints the old Dell Gold Key Star Trek comics from the 60s and 70s. So this is definitely one we will be doing a deeper dive later. I always wish it were in better shape, but I'm happy to have it, and it was a good deal. Originally $1.95. I believe I paid $5 for it at the con. So that's one we'll be looking at later. In a related vein, this was a gift from my RetroCult co-founder, Chuck. He knows I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and he had in his collection the Star Trek logs. So thanks again, Chuck. These are going to be cherished. These are first editions. They're in great shape. spines are great. I love the artwork on the covers. And these are, I never realized these about the logs, but these are actually novelizations of the scripts for the animated series. So like in book 1, Beyond the Farthest Star, Yesteryear, which is a classic Spock story. One of our planets is missing. Then in log 2, we have the Survivor, the Lorelei Signal, the Infinite Vulcan. In log 3, Once Upon a Planet, Mud's Passion, and the Magics of Megas 2. And then in the log 4, the Territon Incident, Time Trap, More Troubles, More Tribbles, More Troubles. So I'm looking forward to reading these. Oops, sorry for that. Looking forward to reading those. Thanks again, Chuck. So we had a nice little Trek find. Then out of the dollar boxes that were there at the show, there were a lot of dollar boxes. In the earlier footage, you probably saw me going through quite a few dollar boxes. I would always say if you're a new or old comic collector, never pass the dollar boxes by. You never know what amazing comics you're going to find in there at a great price. But this is a Marvel Superheroes 80-page spring special from 1992. I don't remember a lot about this. I do seem to remember this book coming out, but I am not sure I've ever read it. So we may do a deeper dive in a We Read Comics section later. It looks like, I wonder if this is like a try. Sometimes they would use these books as almost a tryout for new writers and new artists. Although, yeah, Ron Wilson, who I believe went on to do more work. Dwayne McDuffie. Oh, yeah, the great, late, unfortunately, Dwayne McDuffie, who created Static Shock. If I'm not misremembering that. He wrote the very first Avengers West Coast story in this book. The art's not bad. Got a Loki without the giant horns. This was Loki's 90s look. Yeah, we may do a deep dive on that, see how that story turns out later. A couple of books here I'm going to hold out for later. I will go over those last because I want to give a special shout out to Chris from Beardy Weirdy Comics who ran the show. But we'll start with more dollar box finds. Daredevil 249, it's a Wolverine crossover, gotta love it. Love the Rick Leonardi cover. That's just great cover. The Mystery Special, which is a mystery series from mystery author Max Allan Collins. This is another one I seem to remember when it came out in the early 90s. I'm 99% sure I never read it, but interested to read it now. Mystery apparently was an Eclipse Comics property that in the 80s that came over to DC in the 90s, so did find an actual Eclipse copy. Mr. Monster. If you ever find Mr. Monster, especially in dollar boxes, do not hesitate. Just pull the trigger on that. There are some really good videos out there. I believe maybe Comic Tropes did a deep dive into Mr. Monster. I can't remember that. I will find the video and try to put a link up here somewhere to that video. Another mystery thrilling detective adventures from Eclipse. This is the first issue. We'll be diving into that. Daredevil 259. Another classic John Romita Jr. cover. And looks like Daredevil's about to have a bad day. Daredevil 234. This was an issue. This came out in the 80s. This was it was a weird era of Daredevil right after Frank Miller's Born Again storyline. So it was like Daredevil had kind of just been reborn, relaunched with Frank Miller's amazing story. If you've never read Born Again, you should go get a copy. But then you just had some issues after that time. This is 235 with Mr. Hyde, with Daredevil trying to reestablish himself as a superhero in Hell's Kitchen. And this is another 90s one, 273, another JRJR cover, and interiors, I'm pretty sure. All right, and Fantastic Four Annual number 11. Just anytime you find Bronze Age, Fantastic Four in a dollar bin. Yeah, and this one's in really beautiful shape. Even the spine is nice and straight. There's a little bit of I don't think that's a roll. I believe that's actually just a printing error, which that's fine because the spine itself is very square. Another missing issue. I'm working on a run of Web of Spider-Man and making progress on that. Needed issue 19. Don't remember Humbug. Guessing he did not become an A-list villain. Oh yeah. Web of Spider-Man 26. Great black suit cover. And then again, anytime you find Bronze Age horror in a dollar box, just do it. Even if it's a little rough. For $1, well worth it. Secrets of Sinister House. I do have a collection of Bronze Age DC, Marvel, Charlton horror that I purchased from Sailfish Comics in Concord, North Carolina, probably 4 years ago at this point. And I'm still working my way through the collection and inventorying it, so that's definitely a video for another day. We're going to do a deep dive into Bronze Age horror. Another Web of Spider-Man, great cover. Not exactly sure who the artist here is. I do like the take on Spider-Man there. Issue 14. A Web of Spider-Man 4. Great Doc Ock cover. Nice, beautiful John Byrne Web of Spider-Man number 6. I don't know if he did the interiors. We will find out later in We Read Comics. And then number 10 with Dominic Fortune. Fortune was one of those characters I remember they really tried to make him a thing back in the 80s and 90s. He was like a James Bond meets Indiana Jones kind of adventurer, spy. I really don't know much about the character. I remember that he did make guest appearances in a lot of Marvel books in the 80s. So there we go. Another book. We're slowly building a full run of Marvel Fanfare. This is issue 29, John Byrne Hulk. Again, you guys are going to find out I'm a John Byrne fanboy. So Marvel Fanfare 12, Black Widow. Good story. Then, of course, Marvel Fanfare number 1. Spider-Man and Angel teaming up, it looks like. And I think this might be a P. Craig Russell cover. I'll have to do a little more research and find out. Oh, and now the dreaded duplicates slip in. For whatever reason in my comic inventory app, I thought I needed issue 48, but I didn't. I already had it, but now I have another one. But again, it's a John Byrne She-Hulk cover, so how can you go wrong? An extra one's not hurting anything. And then these are actually comics we found in the little antique mall in Kannapolis. There's a comic dealer in there. I believe it's called Marketplace on Main. And found a few things in there. it was a great selection, great little shop. There I found Marvel Age, which was Marvel's official news magazine throughout the 80s. I love finding stuff like this, even though they're not comic books per se. It's a nice little time capsule into the 80s era of Marvel. Then the Wolverine saga, which is kind of a history of Wolverine at the time, which at the time it was so much of Wolverine's past was up in the air. So this was kind of the beginning of a look into the history of Wolverine. Liefeld and Terry Austin cover. And then this was a little 2-pack with Adventures of Superman, 464, and then Action Comics 653. Not in great condition, but a nice reading copy. I really bought it for the 464. The 653 is rough. It'll go into the Fortress of Solitude reading stack. And then another Marvel Age, number 50. Specifically looking, apparently one of the New Universe characters was going to die. The New Universe was a new comic imprint that Marvel tried in the mid-80s. I really enjoyed it. I was especially a big fan of Spitfire and the Troubleshooters, but I actually do have a complete run of all of the New Universe books, and it's been on my agenda for a long time to do a deep dive into the New Universe. And so maybe we'll start with this issue of Marvel Age, and then we'll go look at the individual books. So those were the big ones. Now this one was my wife and her mother are huge fans of Dark Shadows, especially in the Vampire Barnabas Collins. So when she found this issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland, it's in beautiful condition. I mean, it looks like it just came off the rack. But with Barnabas Collins on the cover, that was no brainer. We ended up getting a really good deal on it too. That dealer was offering all of his boxes, magazines and comics were all 50% off. So great deal on that. So that was a must-have. Then these last two books are ones, or actually last three books I got from Chris at Beardy Weirdy Comics. He was running the show, and he had some great comics on his back wall. More Bronze Age. This is Bronze Age Marvel horror, supernatural thrillers featuring the Invisible Man. And he gave me a great deal on this. So if you're ever near one of Beardy Weirdy's shows, or he actually does have booths in Marketplace on Main, as well as some other locations, I will actually put up a image here in a moment with his logo and his address. You should definitely check him out. Follow him on Instagram, and we'll have links to that in the description. But Chris is an amazing, great guy, and he sells amazing, great comics. So, started with The Invisible Man. The next one was Supernatural Thrillers #1, featuring It. Look at that cover. I would love an It action figure. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but I'm slowly building a Swamp Creatures action figure shelf with Swamp Thing, Man Thing, Moss Man, and It would make a amazing addition to that. And then finally, the Marvel Comics Group Fun and Games magazines. These I remember as a kid. I always kind of pass these things up. I'd rather have the comic than an activity magazine. I did have a couple of activity books like The Amazing Spider-Man, but this one I don't remember. And now as an adult going back, I definitely want things like this. And this is a beautiful copy, unused. None of the puzzles or art or coloring has been done. So great find. And so thanks again to Chris for putting on an amazing show in Kannapolis. I believe he has another one coming up in November later this year. So if we'll post some more information about that later. We will probably try to go to that. I believe it's in Monroe, North Carolina. And we'll let you know more as that gets closer. But thanks for joining us here at the RetroCult. And until next time, have fun.